Hello and welcome to episode number 170, where I take questions from the Elements community. I answer questions on the menstrual cycle and moon phases. I talk about anemia, and I also discuss why we should be focusing on fiber and not protein. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a new private community away from social media on my new website, Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Now, this community provides a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, and to support each other. And I have many other perks in this community as well, so check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab in the menu. I hope you can join us. I'm looking forward to a lot more in-depth connection and conversation over there. And now, here's the show. Hey there, it's Colette, and before I get started with today's Q&A episode, I want to fill you in on some things that have been going on in the past week or so. You may have noticed, if you're up to date with the podcast, that on February the 4th, episode number 170 was released on gender equality, and that episode disappeared on Monday the 8th. And I want to tell you why, what's happening. So it wasn't any technical glitch. There was a purpose, a reason for the deletion. So let me tell you the story because I just want to be upfront and very clear about what's going on. Amy Wheeler and I recorded a podcast on gender equality, and it was actually a request from a Polish woman in the community who sent in a request and said that in her country, Poland, that it was very sexist and high demands on women to give themselves up wholly for their family. And she was interested in myself and Amy discussing that. So Amy and I recorded a podcast episode. We talked about this issue, gender equality, our own experiences, and what's going on currently in the news and politics in our institutions, etc. Needless to say, we touched on some really sensitive topics. Now, both of us feel that they're important topics to discuss, but I was really concerned about reaction, and I have to say Amy was concerned as well. And after much deliberating, I decided to publish it, and I was happy that I received some good feedback on it. However, so that was on Thursday. I released it Thursday, the 4th of February, 2021, in case you're listening to this episode in the following years. And then on Sunday, I received a notification of an Apple podcast review, which really stopped me in my tracks. And basically the title of the review was "Became Too Political Too Often." And I was given 2 out of 5 stars. Yikes. So this reviewer said, "A favorite podcast I've always looked forward to. I've listened to all the back episodes. I agree with Colette and Amy's politics. Just don't want to hear it in an Ayurveda podcast. I go to my Ayurveda podcast as a refuge from my political podcasts, not to hear more of it. If you skip certain episodes with hardly any mention of Ayurveda, it's brilliant, inspirational, and filled with Ayurveda advice." So that was the Apple podcast review that came in on Sunday, and my heart sank when I read that review, because obviously I take the podcast really seriously, and I tossed and turned that night just thinking about it, and it literally gave me the wake-up call that I needed. I agree with this reviewer. Politics has been slipping into the chats between myself and Amy, whether it's US politics, and given what's happened in US politics the past 4 years, that's not a big surprise. But there's also been yoga politics. The recent gender equality episode, it was a lot about Europolitics. So I have to thank this reviewer, as it really caused me to reflect on the fact that people are, of course, coming to the podcast to learn more about Ayurveda and not my or Amy's view on politics. So putting my ego in check, taking a big dose of humble pie, I decided first thing on Monday morning to delete that gender equality episode. This is a really good learning moment for me, and sometimes you just really need to be kind of shaken out of a certain way of thinking or a certain way of doing things that you were just kind of going with the flow all along. And so now I'm taking the time to reflect on the structure of the podcast going forward, and in particular, putting you, the listener, first. What you want to hear, what you expect to hear when you go to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to do my best, and I am committed to sharing the wisdom of Ayurveda. My objective is always to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. And that is where I need to focus my energy. So I just wanted to let you know that, of course, I'm always going to speak my truth, but I'm also, more aware and sensitive of why you're coming to the podcast. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please feel free to share it with me. I'll put my email in the show notes. Also, we have that community, the Elements of Ayurveda community. Join there. We're having discussions over there at the moment. So just know I'm listening to you. If you were offended in the past by the politics seeping into the podcast, I'm sorry. I will be more aware of that going forward, while at the same time speaking my truth and being authentic and genuine. So as always, thank you so much for your support. And like I said, I'd be interested in hearing your comments or feedback. Always happy to hear them. Okay, now let's get on with the Q&A episode. Hi there. It's the first Q&A episode for 2021, and I'm going to be taking questions from the Elements community. We're going to talk about the menstrual cycle and moon phases, anemia, and why we should focus on fiber and not so much on protein. So let's get into these questions. So the first one is from Nicole, and she's in the private Elements of Ayurveda community. And she said, I'm wondering if you could talk about the moon and Ayurveda, particularly the different phases and how we might use that energy throughout the month, where we might be focusing our attention, and or what may be the best practices during certain phases. Okay, great. Thanks, Nicole, for your question. So we know the moon has 4 primary phases. There's the new moon, the waxing moon, the full moon, and the waning moon. Now, our menstrual cycle also has 4 phases. That's the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. So each phase of our menstrual cycle can be associated with the energy of the moon. However, I want you to note that your cycle may not sync up exactly to the moon cycle, and that's okay. What's important to understand is the energy of each phase of your menstrual cycle, and tune into what your body is asking for and what it needs. So let's take a look at the cycle in detail. The first phase is the menstrual phase. It is the start of the cycle, and so day 1 is the first day of bleeding, when your body sheds the uterine lining. It's associated with the new moon. It's also associated with winter time and nighttime, as it's a time to rest because we have the least amount of energy in this phase. So it's really good idea to be delegating tasks at this phase to really conserve your energy, avoiding strenuous exercise, and any strenuous yoga practice, and definitely avoiding inversions. The Apana Vayu energy is moving downwards to shed the blood. And so if we're doing inversions, we're putting that energy in the opposite direction. So definitely avoiding inversions during this phase. You also want to eat easy, digestible, healthy foods that will really nourish you, like khichdi and soups. Our digestion may be a little sensitive at this time. It's also a good time to have some quiet time, some alone time if possible, as you will really want to focus inwardly. There may be a feeling that you want to be in a quiet space to reflect, taking a retreat from the busyness of life. This is a very intuitive time, so taking time to be creative, artwork, gardening, cooking, writing, journaling is wonderful at this time, as it's really a time to let go of anything that didn't serve you in the previous cycle. So taking this time each month to reflect on what happened in the previous cycle, journal about it to process any undigested emotions, and then letting go. Also at this time, it can be great to meditate on what you want to cultivate more of in the coming cycle. So you've journaled about what you want to let go of, and then once you've processed through that, then it's time to focus on, well, what do I want to bring in more of in the coming cycle? What are my intentions for the cycle ahead? So that's the menstrual phase. Now the next phase is the follicular phase. And this is when the brain's pituitary gland releases a hormone stimulating the follicle, which is holding an immature egg. This phase is associated with the waxing moon phase. It's also associated with springtime and morning time. So just like in spring and in the morning, the air is rich with possibilities, and it brings greater energy, creativity, and inspiration. You may have a heightened sense of awareness around this time, and you're less inwardly focused. You're more excited to be productive at this time. So use this inspirational energy to create something new. It's a time to research, to get organized, because your mind is really organized at this time. You're really thinking clearly, and you're also feeling quite strong energetically. So use that energy to be productive. The next phase is the ovulation phase. So this is considered the second half of the cycle, and it usually occurs about 13 to 15 days before the start of your next period. And this is when an egg is released from the ovaries into the fallopian tube. It's associated with the full moon, with summertime and midday. It's a time of coming down and harvesting, reorganizing and prioritizing. So organizing the creative inspiration from the previous phase, thinking about what you want to do, what you want to harvest. Celebrate what you have created and achieved, letting go of what you haven't achieved. So really being self-compassionate in the process. And then maybe getting support from others. It's a good time to communicate, for teamwork. So that can be really beneficial in this phase as you try to look at the projects you started in the follicular phase and then think about how to finish them off, how to harvest those projects. So you may need some support in this phase. Then the final phase is the luteal phase. And this is where testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen are at their peak levels. They are working together to rebuild the uterine lining, and estrogen thickens the uterine lining, and progesterone keeps the uterine lining in place. It's the clarity phase, where the subconscious becomes more obvious, and insights or lessons from this cycle will become more clear. It's associated with a waning moon. It's also associated with autumn and late afternoon. So it's a time for transformation, transforming that which is out of alignment with our true self. You will be extra sensitive to energy during this phase, so you may want to seek solitude at this time as you begin to reflect on the lessons you've learned and what's not serving you, and imagining how you want to go into the next cycle. And then from the luteal phase, you go back into the menstrual phase. So that's where you're letting go. So you can see there is a a cycle every month. And the beautiful thing about it is there's energy shifts. So by understanding these energy shifts, you can set up your life to work with these, obviously where possible. We all have busy lives, but just having more awareness and tuning in more to your cycle and really how you're feeling. So rather than doing the same thing day in, day out, which a lot of us have the tendency to do because we're so busy, it's really about tuning in and listening to what your body needs, how you're feeling, and taking time to reflect on what phase of the cycle I'm in and what my body needs and what will be beneficial for me today. So there you go, Nicole. Thank you so much for your question. I hope that helps. And let me know over in the Elements of Ayurveda community, your thoughts, your feedback. And if you're not part of the community and you want to join us, just check out the community tab on my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. You'll see I have created this intimate space for like-minded people to come together so we can connect and share and support each other. That's away from social media. Now you get lots of other perks in this community. You get early access to the weekly podcast episodes. There's monthly office hours so we can discuss podcast episodes. You can ask questions, share information. We also have regular group challenges to help keep us mindful and accountable. And you get to have input on topics for future podcast episodes and submit questions also, like in this Q&A episode. I am also in there regularly sharing tips and advice. So I'll put the links in the show notes also. Okay, let's go on to the next question. It's from Miranda, who's also in the Elements of Ayurveda community. And she was asking about anemia in the group. So I said, this would be a good topic to cover in this Q&A. So there are many different types of anemia according to Western medicine. The iron deficiency anemia, which is a condition where the blood lacks adequate healthy red blood cells. And red blood cells carry oxygen to the body's tissues. So without enough iron, your body can't produce enough hemoglobin in the red blood cells that enables them to carry oxygen. So as a result, iron deficiency anemia may leave you feeling tired and short of breath. Then there's vitamin deficiency anemia, which is a lack of healthy red blood cells caused by when you have lower amounts of certain vitamins. Vitamins linked to vitamin deficiency anemia include folate, vitamin B12, and vitamin C. Then there's aplastic anemia, which is where the body just stops producing new red blood cells. And sickle cell anemia is an inherited red blood cell disorder in which there aren't enough healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen throughout your body. Then there is thalassemia, which is an inherited blood disorder that causes your body to have less hemoglobin than normal. And hemoglobin, like I said, enables the red blood cells to carry oxygen. Finally, anemia could be a result of bleeding disorders like excessive menstrual bleeding, bleeding gums, or hemorrhoids. And this can result in a loss of blood, which can result in anemia. So Ayurveda classifies anemia according to the dosha imbalance and what qualities are present and how the anemia is expressing itself. So let's go through each dosha here. So in Vata type anemia, the person will express Vata imbalances, low body weight, they will be pale, they may have dry and rough skin, they may experience fast heartbeat or shortness of breath. There may be more dryness in the bowels, so leading to constipation. There may be body aches, moving pain around the body, and brittle nails. In Pitta type anemia, the person will express Pitta type imbalances, so that would be like heated emotions, really getting irritated easily. They may have a yellowish color to the skin, to the urine, to stools, also may have nausea. They may have sharp pains in the head or around the liver. They may experience dizziness or vertigo, and there may be inflammation, like soreness on the tongue. In Kapha type anemia, the person will express Kapha type imbalances, and that could be extreme lethargy, water retention, swelling, cold and clammy skin, and there may be a lack of concentration. So you can see for each dosha type, there's a different expression of anemia. And so because we all have a different ratio of these 3 dosha types in our constitution, it's really best to get professional tailored advice when treating anemia. So, however, today I can definitely offer some tips that will be good for all types of anemia. So definitely iron-rich foods to help build up the blood. And this will be things like beans and beets, carrots, dried fruit like raisins, apricots, dates, figs, pomegranate, meat and fish, green veggies like spinach and collard greens, mustard greens, broccoli, parsley. And also the supplement chlorella, which is particularly rich in chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is a pigment that gives plants their green color, and plants use chlorophyll along with sunlight to get their nutrients. So that is really high in iron. It's also important to enhance your body's absorption of iron by having other foods rich in vitamin C at the same time as you eat these iron-rich foods. So foods like leafy greens, which are high in vitamin C, are kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, again, parsley, citrus fruits. So it could be as simple as adding some parsley or a squeeze of lemon to your dinner, your soup, or your smoothie can really help with the absorption of iron. Another supplement which is great is blue-green algae like spirulina. This algae grows in both salt and fresh water. Now, it is said to be one of the most nutrient-dense foods on earth. I always recommend getting professional advice before taking any supplements, as they may be aggravating to your dosha. Also, low levels of B12 can result in anemia. So if you're not eating a lot of meat or plant-based diet, or you're vegan or vegetarian, you may need to take a B12 supplement. And again, getting advice on that would be really great. Now, stress and anxiety management is important, as stress can have a big impact on vitamin metabolism, which in turn can affect your iron levels. So there you go, Miranda. I hope that helps, talking a bit about anemia. And like I said, it's really important to get professional advice, so making sure that the advice is tailored to you. The nice thing about Ayurveda is it really looks at the root cause of, in this case, anemia. So not only looking at why is this happening, but also looking at what you're eating, what's your self-care practices, what's your lifestyles, what's your routines. And that's important because, as you can see, it's not only what you're eating that could affect your iron levels, but also stress and anxiety and lifestyle. If you're looking for some support, I offer online consultations where we get online for 90 minutes. For 60 minutes, we chat about everything in your life. I ask you what you're eating, when you're eating, how you're eating, your morning routine, your evening routine, your stressors, your emotions, and your self-care practices, your exercise. So we cover all that. And then we'll put together a strategy for you that will cover your food, your morning rituals, your evening rituals, your self-care, your mindfulness practices, your exercise, but that fits in with your lifestyle. It really is my objective to educate, empower, and help you take charge of your own health and well-being. So educating you on your unique constitution, on your tendencies in regards to imbalances, and how to bring your body and mind back into balance before any major problems occur. So if you're interested in chatting, I will put the link in the show notes. I also offer a free 15-minute Services Enquiry call. If you want to hop online and just chat and ask me some questions, I'm happy to do that before you book anything. So check out that link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Okay, here is the final question. It's actually a question I get a lot, and it's about protein. And here's why I want to promote a focus on fiber and not protein. So I get a lot of question about protein and am I getting enough protein? And I really think the marketing giants in the meat and dairy industry did a great job in getting us to obsess about our protein intake. However, according to a National Health and Nutrition Examination survey, they found that the average American male consumes 102 grams of protein per day, while the average female eats about 70 grams. So that's almost twice the daily recommended intake established by the Food and Nutrition Board. The recommended dietary allowance for protein is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So if you wanted to determine your daily protein intake, you can multiply your weight in pounds by 0.36. So for example, if you weigh 140 pounds, you will only need about 50 grams of protein per day. Just to put that in perspective, a 3-ounce piece of meat is 21 grams, and 1 cup of dry beans is 16 grams. Now, of course, protein is an essential nutrient and it's necessary in building and repairing our muscle tissue, along with maintaining important bodily functions. However, when I hear people saying that they're taking extra protein powders or protein bars, etc., in order to make sure that they're getting enough protein, I have to wonder, is it really necessary? So what I think we should be focusing more on is fiber, as many of us are not getting enough. The recommended daily intake of fiber for women is 25 grams and it's 38 grams for men. Now, this is a high quota and it can be hard for us to meet. So it's said that the average person gets approximately 16 grams of fiber per day. So that's a lot less than necessary. Now, fiber is the indigestible parts of plant food, such as vegetables and fruits, grains and beans. It is a type of carbohydrate that helps to keep our digestive system healthy. And there are 3 types of fiber, which all have different functions and health benefits. So there's soluble fiber, which helps to slow the emptying process of our stomachs, which helps to keep you full longer. So soluble fiber is found in things like fruit and vegetables and oats and barley and legumes. Insoluble fiber absorbs water to help soften the contents of our bowels and support regular bowel movements. It also helps to keep us full and keep the bowel environment healthy. So insoluble fiber is found in whole grain breads and cereals, nuts, seeds, wheat bran, and the skin of fruit and vegetables. And then there's resistant starch, which is not digested in the small intestine and instead proceeds to the large intestine, where it can assist in the production of good bacteria and it improves bowel health. So resistant starch is found in undercooked pasta, underripe bananas, cooked and cooled potatoes and rice. Now, as I said earlier, fiber is the indigestible parts of plant foods like vegetables, fruits, grains, and beans. It doesn't break down and it passes through our system, aiding elimination, and it offers a lot of benefits like helping to keep our digestive system working efficiently, helping to fuel healthy gut bacteria. It can improve our cholesterol and blood sugar levels. It assists in preventing diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and bowel cancer. Fiber also keeps you feeling fuller longer and supports weight loss. Now, unfortunately, the modern diet of refined, highly processed foods mean we don't get enough fiber. So how do we include more fiber in our diet? Well, eating a variety of plant-based foods will help you get enough fiber each day, and that includes choosing lots of vegetables and fruits, which are hopefully seasonal and organic, and enjoying a variety of whole grains such as rice, oats, quinoa, barley, polenta, and buckwheat, for example. Now, you can also boost your fiber intake by adding things like flax seeds to your diet, adding them into oatmeal or smoothies. And you could also have like a handful of nuts and seeds as a snack. You could also add beans into your meals. Now, your body may take time to adjust to more fiber, and so the best thing to do is spread your portions of fiber between meals and make sure that you also hydrate to keep that fiber moving. As we know in Ayurveda, there's no one size fits all. And sometimes for an irregular or sluggish digestive system, eating whole grains can be challenging as they can be very hard to digest. And that's why it's good to get advice that's tailored to you so that you can be educated on your unique constitution, your current needs, and how to maintain balance. Really just taking the guesswork out of everything so you get a strategy that's tailored to you. So that's all my questions from the Elements community, and thank you to everybody for submitting them. Actually, there is one other question I'm getting asked right now, and that's when is the next group discounted digestive reset cleanse? I've set the date for April 16th, 2021. So we'll be doing our spring cleanse then. You can find out all the information in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and go to the events tab for that discounted group digestive reset cleanse starting April 16th. Or you can do a private cleanse at any time throughout the year and choose your own dates. And the private cleanse information you'll find under programs. If you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast so the new episodes will automatically download for you. And if you would like to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast, I would truly appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.